Hey everybody, we're going to be talking about Greek history again on this video. So let's go ahead and get started. The standard that we're going to be talking about is standard number 5 for 8th grade, which is describe the role of Alexander the Great in the Hellenistic world. And the objectives that we're going to be covering is discuss the rise of Alexander the Great, analyze the fall of the empire of Alexander the Great, and evaluate what it makes someone to be considered great historically. And so that's something important I want you to think about. Alexander the Great is known as being great. But why? Think about it. Alexander builds an empire. Now, Philip II of Macedonia was the father of Alexander the Great. After Philip II of Macedonia died, Alexander took over that role of being the leader of this empire that his father had built. Now, his father had expanded it, but nothing to the amount that Alexander will. Within a year, Alexander had destroyed Thebes and enslaved the Theban people. He was the leader that was known as one of the greatest conquerors in history. And whenever he winds up dying, his empire is going to be larger than any other empire the world had seen up to this point. Alexander was a brilliant military commander. And this was following in the footsteps of his father. His father won a lot of military battles using the phalanx, which was where the soldiers would line up side by side, and they would have their spears pointed straight out. And as they would go to these battles, once the first line fell, the person behind them would lower their spear, and then would go in and start fighting. So it was just like a continuous attack of people lowering their spears and attacking more and more and more as it went. And so that was a very great military tactic that the Macedonians used, but Alexander would grow and expand that. Alexander went to conquer Egypt, which was a part of Persia, but the Persia governor heard about him and surrendered without even having a fight. Now, think about this for a minute. He went to conquer Egypt, which was under the control of Persia at the time. The leader that was over this area heard he was coming and just surrendered. Like, imagine if you was on a football team or a softball team and you pulled up to play an opposing team and they saw you and said, oh, wow, we're just going to give up now. You know, that's kind of the same thing. You know, he went and he was on his way there, and this leader was just basically like, we ain't going to win. We might as well just go ahead and give up. He defeated the Persians for the last time near the town of Gaugamela, which made him over the entire Persian Empire. Still intent on building his empire, Alexander led his army through Central Asia. He wanted to go farther into India, but his exhausted troops refused. They said, look, we're not going any farther. We're tired. We're running out of supplies. We want to go back home. In 323 BC, Alexander visited the city of Babylon, got sick, and died a few days later at the age of 33. Alexander's empire was the largest the world had ever seen. Alexander modeled his new cities after the cities of Greece, naming many of them Alexandria after himself. So a lot of these cities, and when you look at cities in this region over here, cities in Egypt, cities in Greece, cities in all these, some areas over in Asia, if they're named Alexandria, chances are they're named after Alexander the Great, and they were named during this time. Because that's what he would do. He would bring the Greek culture to these other cities. He would name them after himself, and he would try to expand their customs to be more like that of the Greeks. Now, the word Hellenistic means Greek-like. And so when we talk about something being Hellenistic, we're meaning that it's like the way the Greek people do. This just shows you a little bit, and my video up here is kind of in the way of the top of it, but Macedonia is up here at the top, up here close to where my face is at. So my face is Macedonia. As he travels down, you see these arrows going down, travels into Egypt, takes over, comes back up through Jerusalem, down to Babylon, where he really kind of makes that his capital in this region, goes on to Persepolis and then back up. Goes all the way up into the Indus River Valley region. He turns around and he comes back a different way than he went originally. He didn't want to seem like he was retreating, so he just came back a different way. Now, the way he came back, a lot of the men didn't survive. It was dangerous. They engaged in battles and things. It wasn't easy. But they returned back where he wound up dying in Babylon. You see the naval expedition here leading back up to Babylon, where he ultimately winds up dying of really unknown causes. He gets sick and dies. Some people said he was poisoned. Some people said that he had a military wound that he just never really recovered from. Whatever it is, he wound up dying there. When Alexander died, he had no known heir, so people fought over his kingdom. And it wound up being divided into 3 parts by 3 of his generals. The 3 kingdoms would divide up into Macedonia, Syria, and Egypt. And the kingdom of Macedonia was the most Hellenistic. Once again, what does Hellenistic mean? It means Greek-like. So the Macedonian kingdom was the one that was the most like the Greeks. In Hellenistic Syria, many of the people was unhappy with Greek rule and they rebelled against their leaders. The rulers of Egypt encouraged Greek culture and growth. They encouraged this. They wanted the Greek culture to be a part of their culture. Alexander the Great caused major political changes in Greece and the Hellenistic world because he would take over these places. They would adapt to a lot of the same Greek customs, these Hellenistic customs, and so he really had a lasting impact on a lot of this part of the world. So, before we conclude tonight, I just want to ask you this question. What makes someone historically great? Now, of course, during his life, he wasn't known as Alexander the Great. This is going to be a nickname that's going to be pinned to him later on. But what makes him great? Historically, what makes him great? Did the people that he invaded their areas think he was great? Did his soldiers think he was great? What makes somebody great? Is it having a great military ability? Is it changing the culture? Is it someone that has such a lasting impact on history that even to this day, you mention Alexander the Great, and people's going to know exactly who you're talking about without you saying anything else. So historically, what makes somebody great? Think about that. Ponder it. Maybe write down something, whatever. But just think about what makes someone great historically. And that's where we're going to wrap up for today.